Hello and welcome to the Monday Agenda. The Monday Agenda today is talking to the country representative for Swissaid here in Tanzania, Blaise Barney, and we are going to look onto the relationship that the country has had with Swissaid Tanzania. Blaise, very welcome to the program and thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you very much.
So our viewers would really wish to understand. I understand personally that you've been in Tanzania for over 40 years, but what is Swissaid and what is it that you do?
So Swissaid, first of all, it's an NGO, an international non-governmental organization. We operate in 9 countries in the world, and we have our headquarters in Switzerland. Okay. And we've been working in Tanzania for more than 40 years, started toward the late 70s. And we focused on 3 main areas of work, which include support to small-scale farming, extractives, which includes transparency and accountability in the extractive sector, and support to small-scale mining. And the last one is gender and gender equality.
Okay, maybe before we dwell into the 3 areas of focus, so for 40 years you've been in Tanzania. You've been concentrating on these 3 areas, of these are new things that have come up.
We've been working primarily in the agriculture sector. Okay. We were in Bukoba before, and then we moved to other areas, and now since the 90s we've been mainly in the south, in Mtwara and Lindi region. And we have started extractive a bit later, late in the 2010 or so. Okay. And gender, we are mainstreaming gender in the other operation, and now also starting with the gender per se project.
Okay, and just to understand, we'll get into the 3 areas in detail, so we get to understand better Swissaid. But your areas of focus are mainly in, you mentioned policy, in these 3 areas, or what it is that you exactly do? Or do you want us to now go straight ahead and...
We try to combine our work. We have a lot of field work directly in the districts, in the villages, in all these areas, but we try to also link this field work with research and with advocacy at the national level, and to some extent also at the global level, when we can aggregate findings from across different countries. So that's really trying to get the evidence which can then feed into wider policy and research work.
And for the past 40 years to date, how would you say you've achieved? Are you progressing? Do you see things moving? Or have we stalled? Or is there any progress?
There are progress, and of course there are different ways of measuring progress, quantitative, qualitative, and others, but there are definitely a lot of progress. We are also improving ourselves as an organization in the way we deliver our work. We are enhancing our own standards, our own type of partnership and collaboration broadly, so there are definitely a lot of good progress.
Tanzania is mainly an agricultural economy. Of course, we've got tourism, we've got extractive, which we also speak about. But one of the areas that you focus on is on small-scale farming. And for me, I always ask myself, since independence, 50+ years, we've been talking about agriculture, but I really am not seeing the transformation in the sector. So what is it that you're doing that we are not doing that could really transform the agricultural sector? Starting with the sector itself, looking onto the farmer, looking onto the value chain.
There are a number of things. I think the way we operate is to work very closely with local partners here, and sometimes to assess in the field what already works and could be scaled up, as opposed to only bringing in foreign methods. Is also about improving local knowledge and local method, and see what works and what doesn't work, and to push up those things which actually work. So we work very closely with farmers, with a number of stakeholders, Tanzanian stakeholders, and to do this regular analysis and trying really to push things forward in that sense, so that they can be fully locally owned and locally driven, with some external support as and when needed. So that's a key aspect of our work here. I think a key thing when you look at growth, and if you look at the Tanzanian Development Vision 2025, and to make Tanzania a middle-income country by then, a key thing when you look at economic growth is to what extent this growth can be pro-poor. You know, we talk about growth often, and you have countries with very high level of growth, but is it really addressing poverty? Sometimes it's two different things. You can have a country growing economically, but yet the absolute number of poor is also growing.
Growing, absolutely.
And there are factors as demographic growth, sometimes which overruns economic growth, and some level of growth are also benefiting mainly non-poor people, and those poor people remain in level of poverty. So it's also about analyzing those mechanisms so that poor people can also benefit from growth.
Absolutely. I'm looking onto Switzerland. There's a lot that Tanzania could learn. Before we look onto the issues of industrialization, which is the key drive in Tanzania at the moment, the field still looking onto the small scale farming. We have cocoa in Tanzania, and best chocolates are coming from Switzerland. How do we learn best practices from countries, from expertise from Switzerland, for instance, that we could really adopt into our countries, and then, you know, instead of probably exporting raw materials, go on to semi-processing or even processing? You know, we do not have a chocolate factory, but you've been in the country for over 40 years as Swissaid, and you know, I'm sure there are lessons that we could really learn and put them into practice, adopt them in the country.
I wouldn't want to go in any kind of comparative views or anything, but in terms of just sharing insights, I think what is very important is really coordination and planning across different actors, and not only to look at actors individually, but really to look at the system. So that when you're talking about agriculture, there are a lot of things that come into play. Of course, the farmer themselves, but also the banks, and to what extent farmers can access loans to improve. Also research, so that research can actually benefit and bring solution to the very problem the farmers are facing, and not be isolated. Of course, policy makers, you need to have policies which are conducive to agricultural growth and really understand from the inside the issues those farmers are facing. Sometimes it comes also with customs. You know, you need to bring in seeds, goods, etc. from other countries. It has also, if there are high level of tariffs and others, it can also create obstacles for those farmers. Education and so on and so on. So you really look at the whole system that can empower or not a given economic sector.
So what exactly is your intervention to as far as small-scale farming is concerned?
Our intervention is quite multifaceted. Without going too much into details, we're looking at 4 main dimensions. Okay. The first dimension is really about enhancing production and productivity of small-scale farmers. Okay. So this is about training manual, supporting extension services, farmer field school model, demonstration farms, etc. And we are working on the principles of agroecology, which is also known as ecological organic agriculture, or in Swahili, kilimo hai. So we're really working with the environment and with nature to find a solution there. So we also try to minimize the use of synthetic inputs and chemicals. Correct. The second dimension is really on marketing and value addition, so that we can really help farmer groups, farmer cooperative, farmer organization develop business plans, develop an economic vision, develop an economic project which is financially sustainable. You know, over time you can generate income which can, of course, be shared among the members of the cooperative or the group, but also be reinvested into economic activities within the group so that the group grows. So this is really about providing the tool, the knowledge, but also with the mindset of having a long-term vision that can really bring everybody forward, and not only the group, but the community at large. I think it's very important that those groups can be catalysts of change, which eventually benefit the community. The third dimension is about institutional strengthening. So it's really about working with those groups so that they can be more resilient as an organization. So sometimes it starts really with registration, supporting them to register, opening a bank account, developing saving and lending schemes, and then on governance structure, developing a strategic plan, a business plan, membership, collecting membership fees. You know, very often this is in the constitution of the group, but they are not collected, so the organization has no money and cannot grow. So, you know, these are the kind of things which supporting general assemblies so that they can be shared decision with the members, their leadership and management for the leaders. And the last dimension is really about research and advocacy. So here we partner with universities and research institutions in Tanzania, supporting also PhD students to conduct research on matters that are of prime importance for the farmers, and then also disseminating those findings wherever it's important. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's a little bit how the program is structured.
They're pretty broad, but I'm sure my viewers watching us right now would really wish to understand. There are critical challenges that are facing the farmers today. I'm happy and delighted to learn that you know, the approach is ecological organic agriculture, which is highly commendable and recommendable. But the issues that really are of great importance for farmers, if you're to ask me, are issues of market, issues of capital, you know, issues of agri-inputs, again, organic. How do you help farmers as Swissaid to actually have access to such things, especially market? And, you know, while many people think like, okay, so let's produce for a European market, we haven't even satisfied our internal market or the regional market for that sake. So I wouldn't really rather go now to saying, let's help farmers to take products and crops to Europe, Switzerland. But how do you help farmers to, you know, to get credit, for instance, issues of, you know, agri-inputs and, you know, access to markets, etc.?
Yes, so we are primarily looking at domestic market for us, because we're really targeting small-scale farmers, and we really believe there's first a big opportunity for domestic market, even at the district level, regional level, national level sometime. And market is a key driver for increased production. When we talk to farmers, why don't you produce more? You know, you've got so much space and land. One of the key answers, they say, there's no market. We may produce and then everything will end up rotting here, or we'll sell it at a very low price, so it's not worth it, basically. So markets are the key driver for enhanced production and productivity. What we actually do is really trying to support farmers to get access to market information. You know, where is the market? At what prices can we sell? With who? Which buyer can we have a trusted commercial relation? So it's really about supporting. Sometimes we conduct those market surveys directly with the farmers. So we have our own program officers taking on board farmers, and they go to various markets in the region to understand the prices. They speak to market managers from main cities, and they understand the prices variation across the month. So they know, okay, if we sell, you know, this crop at that period, we may earn so much, and then help them do their own planning themselves, so that they don't sell directly, or they better plan the timing to sell. This goes also with irrigation program, because if you want, you know, water is a key issue. So if you want to plan throughout the year, then you need to have irrigation systems so that you can have a constant supply of goods. This is also access to digital technologies, because this is a game changer right now. And the country, as we know, the network in the country is increasing day by day. So this is this really brings changes. So supporting farmers to access a smartphone, to be able to use smartphone, and to be able to know how to get information through these, supporting them to sometimes simple tools of setting up a WhatsApp group with trusted buyers from different places. They can exchange information, they can get quick things. This is also a key thing. We're also supporting entrepreneurs to set up shops which actually source from small-scale farmers. And that's a key thing where us as an NGO, I think we have an important role to play, because sometimes the private sector may not go there because of the risk factor. They say this is a too risky area, small-scale farming. We may lose our money, basically. So, how can we play that role to bring those farmers to that level of trust whereby an external investor or would be ready to invest, or a bank would be ready to make a loan at an acceptable interest rate, which is very important for farmers. So we can help with this startup there so that we can start the business and then other actors can come into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Access to credit, do you have anything to that as well for small-scale farmers?
Not directly, but
okay.
Indirectly. I mean, we are not for profit, we're independent, so we don't support specific private sector to access the market, but we want to produce or to support the conditions which are favorable for banks or other partners to come in. So registered farmer groups or farmer organization with a proper structure, business planning, constitution, etc., which can enhance the chances of them being a reliable economic partner for an economic project. So indirectly we are supporting it. Yeah.
And of course we also have the issue or the challenge of post-harvest losses in this sector. Is it another area that you have a keen interest on towards assisting farmers?
Yes, very much so.
Very
Yeah,
good.
no, and in the curriculum, which has been co-designed with a number of Tanzanian partners, post-harvest is an important section in it. So yes, we're looking really at post-harvest handling. There's through ecological and organic methods there, but there's a lot of improvement to be done there also. Yeah.
And do you work directly with the farmers, or do you work through the Ministry of Agriculture?
Well, we have a collaboration whereby we work directly with a farmer cooperative or farmer organization, registered farmer organization in the district, in the region, but in close collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture at district level. So the DICO office and the extension offices. At national level, we have agreements, of course, and this is more to see to what extent some of the findings or results from the field can be used for advocacy at a wider level, in close collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and other line ministries and stakeholders.
You mentioned the approach that you're deploying in agriculture, and I said it's truly recommendable and commendable, is on ecological agriculture. Speak to Tanzanians, tell them why ecological agriculture.
Well, there are many reasons why ecological agriculture should be further promoted and used. I mean, one of them, of course, is health. As we know, conventional agriculture and heavy utilization of pesticide, and in particular those classified as HHP, highly hazardous pesticides, are dangerous for the health. And there are a number of research globally, of course, but also now increasingly in Tanzania. There are Tanzanian researchers researching on those issues and finding some of the consequences of heavy utilization of pesticides. And there are, myself, I've been going around the field very often, and very often I collect samples of those pesticides, and many of them are on the highest level of toxicity on the WHO list of HHP, and I can see, people using them without the regular prevention method they should use. So this is a big concern for the farmers who cultivate using those pesticides, but also for consumers, because there are residues into the food, and food safety, of course, is a major concern for consumers also. Environment, of course, is a major issue. A heavy input agriculture can create a lot of damages to the environment, while ecological agriculture can compensate those, and to some extent can also offset some of the negative aspect of industrialization. Another one is also economic. Ecological agriculture is much cheaper than, and this is usually the convincing factor for farmers when you start talking about money, and then you do your balance throughout the year, you'll find that with ecological agriculture, the spending are much lower than with conventional farming. You don't need to buy all those expensive chemical inputs, and yet you can get really good results. That's the beauty about ecological agriculture. You do get results. But sometimes, and that's also one of the biggest challenge, you need to look at them in a different way. With conventional, you may get your bumper harvest the following year because with a heavy utilization of fertilizers and pesticides, etc. Whereas with ecological agriculture, you need to have a longer term perspective. You know, you may have rather small increased yield for the next year, but it will come after 2 or 3 years where you keep on enriching the soil, you know, with compost, manure, and other methods, and then you can see how the plants are really growing and how more resistant they are towards disease and pest. So ecological agriculture requires a longer term perspective, which is often challenging because people want to have results quickly. So that's also, it goes with communication, it goes with showing examples. And now we start having a number of farmers who have been practicing this for many years and now have, you know, really very nice results. And this is for me the best evidence. When people are doubting, I say, come and see, talk with the farmers, come and see the demonstration plot, come and see, talk with the researchers, see, they will share their findings, and you will get all these results. So now, yeah, it's a very convincing thing when you see.
We have two other areas to focus on, and you're watching the Monday Agenda, and with me on the program is Blaise Barnier, who is the country representative for Swissaid in Tanzania, and we're looking on to the works of Swissaid in Tanzania, having been in the country for over 40
years, yeah.
40 years in operation, and the support that they give. And we've just we've just exhausted the agricultural sector. And now let's look onto the extractive sector as well, your intervention into the sector.
Yeah, so in the extractive sector, we work on 2 main dimensions. The first dimension is really about enhancing transparency and accountability in the extractive sector widely. And the other one is more looks specifically at the ASM, which is the artisanal and small-scale mining sector there, and more particularly in the value chain of gold.
Okay. Why gold?
Gold, I mean, for Switzerland, it's an important value chain because, as you may know, Switzerland is a big hub for gold globally. About 50% of world gold transits through Switzerland at some point. Okay. We have some of the major refineries in Switzerland, and also commodity trading, and of course banks and others. So it is the biggest trade link between Tanzania and Switzerland is indeed gold. So there's an interest for us to specifically look at this. We also do advocacy in our own country, which is a very important element. We are also a political organization in our own country where we try to improve the policies within our own country so that we can have more fair gold and bad practices related to gold, if I can say so, can be reduced, and we're going into gold which can also benefit a poorer sector of the population in the countries where it is produced.
You did give interesting figures before we started the program that Tanzania is actually contributing to 2% of the gold globally.
Yes, Tanzania is a big gold producer, about 2% globally. It's the 4th producer in Africa. After South Africa, Ghana, and Mali, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, DRC is not...
DRC, I think a lot goes in the informal sector. So what is formally, it may be much bigger than what it is.
That's good. I thought
but
so.
As we know, and much of it transits through other countries than DRC itself. So it's harder to actually account for it. But if we come to the true figures, I'm sure it may be much more than what it is currently declared.
But I also understand that you do something in the oil and gas. Is that correct?
Yeah, so oil and gas, this is where we're looking at transparency and accountability. So extractive, in the way it is conceptualized in Tanzania, is mainly around oil, gas, and mining. In other countries, it also includes forestry, fisheries, basically all what you extract from the land. So here we work with civil society organizations. There are some very well-known organizations in Tanzania who are our main partner here to promote accountability and transparency in this sector. Okay. And more on supporting the civil society wing in this system when it comes to discussing and engaging with the private sector and with the government.
Okay. And how would you say that side as well in terms of growth, progress in the extractive industry?
I think
are we making any progress? Are we?
There are progress. Of course, to have a more accurate answer, it would be good to ask the question directly to our partners there. But I think there are a lot of opportunities, especially right now. The sector has been changing a lot. There have been new policies, new laws, new ways of operating, which have brought the challenges but also the opportunities. And in terms of having a sector which benefits more to the local communities, there are a lot of opportunities right now. And I'm thinking here about formalization of the ASM sector, artisanal and small-scale mining sector. But when we say formalization, it should not only be about formalize and paying taxes.
Correct.
It should, I mean, that's also part of it, but then what comes with it, having conducive policies behind it, which all go back to logistics, transport, how can that be made easier, infrastructure, how loans, the key gap for ASM is really access to proper equipment. There, when often when you speak about the ASM and see how can your way of producing can be made more responsible, more ethical, etc., give us the tools. So, and then we will do it. So, how can they access loans to buy equipment which can enable them to produce in a more responsible way. So this is a key thing also. But there are also top priorities like the reduction in the use of mercury. There's a Minamata Convention now, which is a big global convention to actually reduce the utilization of mercury. Tanzania is part of it. So now it's really how to implement it. And when we go to the field, very often you'll see, young people using with their bare hand mercury to amalgamate gold, and how can they shift to another way of doing. This implies cost, this implies knowledge, this implies tools and policies, etc. So how do you actually support this change? That's another big challenge in the sector. Yet it's a very interesting sector because gold, it's production, it's value, it's money. So from an NGO perspective, this is also very interesting. It means that you can support it, but also with the idea that it can be self-sustainable over time if the money that is generated can be used in a way
back.
And then we're not needed anymore. We can just pull back and go somewhere else, which is also, I think, very important in the very mindset of NGO, that we need to make ourselves redundant. I think that's a key thing for NGO in a certain sector, that when you know that you're no longer needed, you have succeeded in a way. You have reached something. And there are way enough issues in the world to keep us busy, so we should not focus there, to keep on pushing, and then when it actually works, then you can move away. But that may take some time, but there are really possibilities.
We're getting there.
Yes.
The fifth government under His Excellency John Joseph Pombe Magufuli is, advancing the country toward becoming a middle-income state, and that is through industrialization. What role do you think Swissaid, Tanzania, is playing towards actualization of that vision?
For us, this is a fantastic opportunity. We very much commend this vision. We want to support it. We have restructured our program toward these policies and the Tanzania Development Vision 2025 to see to what extent we can play our role in this. So our program is totally geared toward this goal. But I think our key priority at NGO is to make sure that this growth is pro-poor, that at the end of the day, those who need it are not simply marginalized there, which can happen if you look at the growth path of other countries, and then you end up with countries with very high level of inequalities, a super rich class, growing middle income, and then a vast majority of the population which remains poor for a longer period. So what mechanism can be put in place so that people from lower condition can also benefit from this growth? So this comes with direct intervention in the field in close partnership with many partners, but also in discussions around policies which can better foster this kind of approach.
Okay. And the third pillar of Swissaid is on the issues of gender equality. How are we faring as a country in comparison to, probably global or the 9 countries that you operate?
Well, There are different levels where we can assess how a country is faring in terms of gender. I think Tanzania has many good examples and is doing very well on many different aspects. And generally speaking, the policies are quite favorable to gender equality when we look at the policies as such. So the issue is not so much there, but very much at the implementation. So sometimes you find a gap between what is in the constitution, what is in certain laws and act, and what you actually see in the field. So I think now the big challenge is really about implementing these in close collaboration with local partners. Customary law is very important. Village leaders are key players into this. And to really have champions, women champions who can lead by example of having women leaders or women who actually champion change. So I think at the grassroots level, there's still a lot that can be done in terms of gender.
And how far does your intervention go? Do you, sort of like promote gender equality to as far as in schools, or are you looking at the societal level? Or are you looking at the governance level?
We try to combine things again from grassroots and higher level, and we always contextualize our support. So it's not like we're just coming like this. We always do that in close partnership with local players, and then it's mainly about supporting local players, drivers of change, so that they can do their own work. That's the key approach. So we very much rely on local knowledge and ownership. A key intervention will be at village level, really about for women leadership, to identify potential women leaders and support them, but also supporting village discussions to see what are the social obstacles for women to become leaders, and then to see how these can be addressed through dialogue and discussions. And then having women grow into leadership position, whichever the position it is. It can be at the farmer group level, cooperative, councillor, etc. It's broad, but really looking at what are the social obstacles and how these can be overcome through discussion and dialogue. And I think,
To give it a bit of a life, this very issue of gender, which I'm also very passionate in. Fortunately, because I worked in one of the organizations. We were looking onto the issues of education, supporting a girl child to access, to have equal access as their male counterparts to education. The aspect of gender, what is it that really strikes in Tanzania? Maybe you can give one example to one intervention that you've done, or if it's seeing women leaders coming up, just name a village, name a place, just one example. I know there are a million and one, but you can give us one striking example. And it was like, yeah, Tanzania is truly exemplary.
Well, we have some. We work with some fantastic women leaders, who have been able to really drive their own groups to moving from subsistence farming to commercial farming, and then generating income, and then reinvesting it in a very profitable way within their own group, so that it can keep on growing. I think these are both economic agent and leadership agent. They also lead by example, and the other one is say, okay, you are truly bringing economic benefit and social benefit to our communities, and that's a very good reason to keep supporting. So yeah.
And are you walking across all Tanzania? You've selected regions or districts?
We have for field work. We work currently in 10 districts and 5 regions, but then we are using this field work to have national level activities through local national partners, to identify the best practices and to feed into various conferences, discussion, etc. around those topics. So we have a national coverage, if I can say so, through advocacy, communication work, but in terms of field work is in 10 districts, 5 regions so far.
Okay, do you want to mention them?
Yes,
at least the regions.
The region, yes. Yeah. The region is mainly for agriculture, Lindi and Twara, and we have based our choice on the National Census 2012, and those regions are below the national average on many development indicators.
Correct.
So for us, we said, okay, we will prioritize our work in those regions.
Okay.
We also have a smaller project in Pwani Bagamoyo, and a partnership in Mvomero with Sokoine University, Sustainable Agriculture Tanzania, with whom we've been working for a long time. And for the extractive sector, we work mainly in Geita, because this is really where it is happening now in terms of ASM. So that's where we are mainly.
Okay. Yeah. And, the issues, these are very critical issues, the pillars that you really are focusing in, looking onto the small-scale farming, the extractive, and the issues of gender. But what do you see the role now of a woman in Tanzania, of a young person in Tanzania? Do you have any specific interventions targeting them, or you approach the sectors in their totality?
We work by mainstreaming gender into the existing operation in mining and in agriculture. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's really about creating the example. We are too small as an organization to have large-scale impact. We want to show those examples that it is possible if so-and-so is done, and then these can be then communicated to a wider audience for replication or just emulating ideas there. So of course, when we have especially youth, young women, which can become leaders and can really bring economic benefit, try to support them all the way through, so that this becomes reality, and then they can testify on their own experience to other audiences. Yeah.
You've mentioned several times one of the approaches you used, other than advocacy, is the dissemination. I'm keen on that area. How do you do your dissemination from your findings? Because you do a lot of research work.
Yeah, there is a research work, but also best practices that we observe directly with the farmers. So it's to give a platform for those who actually use it. So for instance, we collaborated in the organization of the so-called first National Ecological Organic Conference in Dodoma last year, mm-hmm. which was attended by more than 300 people and officiated by the Minister of Agriculture, mm-hmm. and with very important stakeholders, including members of parliament, media, universities. So one example was to bring farmers with whom we've been working for many years, and they had a platform, 1 hour session, where they could each share their own experience and answer questions. And they are becoming players, and not only people who listen to others, but they are the one who also talk and explain and share their experience, leading by example again. So this is one example of sharing and dissemination, to give a voice to those most concerned. And whenever we work also or support policies and others, we're trying to bring in those farmers or district level stakeholders to be part of the process there. And yeah, so this is, but of course we work very much with media. They're supporting communication around best practices, good examples through the media in various ways, and then participating in a number of workshop conferences and other events on these. Yeah.
Do you see transformation, Blaise? Do you see Tanzania transforming to to a better, towards middle income state? Do you see transformation to amongst the smallholder farmers, the community that you work in?
Oh yeah, I see a lot of transformation, and I have a long history with Tanzania because I grew up here as a kid. Yeah, I grew up from back in the 80s.
Okay.
In Kilombero region. So I even I could see President Nyerere, which was a big honor as a child. Of course. Yes. Myself, so I can relate what I see now to what I used to experience back in the 80s. And there's been a phenomenal transformation, absolutely phenomenal transformation. When you look at access to information, I think for people are much more informed and aware of what's going on around about things. So that's a key change about access to infrastructure, transiting, traveling. Before it used to be very complicated to go from point E to point B. I mean, there are still challenges, but it's already much easier, and it's going to be much easier with all the large-scale infrastructure project going on right now, and many more access to goods. Back in the time, there was very little things you could buy from imports, etc. Now you can find pretty much everything. So of course there's been a lot of changes, but as always there are also many challenges that need to be overcome, and things can still be improved a lot, but there are phenomenal changes, yes.
Where do you see Swissaid another 2, 3, 5 years from today?
I really think we want to keep on building our partnership. When you work in development, you cannot work in isolation. I think you need to work with partners, and you need to develop strategic partnership, not only small one-off mandates, but you need to really identify those organizations in the country which are like-minded. You know, you have the same vision, the same view, you share those, and it should not be only a financial relation. It should really be along common objective, common vision, where you can really build a long-term relation, so that we also support our partners here institutionally to grow as organization and keep doing this. So for us, I really see ourselves playing that role of working in very close collaboration with our Tanzanian partners, so that they can grow and we can keep our activities together for long term. And these topics of development, extractive, gender, and agroecology, they take time. You know, it's not something you can reach major result only in a short time. You need longer time, and you need a conducive environment to be able to reach those objectives, which is also very important.
What is really your call now to the Tanzanian community in any of the 3 areas you work? Your general call, you've been here, you grew up here. What's your call as now the country representative of Swissaid in Tanzania?
My call is to engage, you know, to see that change is possible, and change will only happen if people want it and push for it and support it. Otherwise, us as organization, but other stakeholders, you know, you can keep pushing for something, but it's not locally owned, people don't trust it, somehow it will not happen. So for me, it's really to engage and to be supporting changes, improvement there. You need to keep a critical mind of what is going on. This is very important there, but when you think and you're convinced that something actually works and can bring benefit for the community or for the society at large, to embrace it and support it all the way through so that it can really happen, and to look really at collective progress. I think that's very important. We should not always look at individual gains, but we should look at collective progress. And there are social leaders in the communities. They should really look at their key role as driver of collective progress.
Okay. And how does, my very last, how do we, what's your take on innovation in the areas? Or what role do you think innovation plays towards, you know, advancing the country from low income to middle income, from non-industrial to industrial economy? What role does innovation play? And probably again your call towards you know, extractive industry, towards small-scale agriculture. How do we embrace innovation towards addressing the challenges that we face in the areas?
Oh, innovation is key. I mean, this is a key driver of change there, and innovation is very important. I think a country like Tanzania can also leapfrog, as we say, a certain innovation. They may not need to go certain paths of innovation some other countries have gone through and directly jump to another more innovative or methods or tool that will bring more benefits. So that's a key opportunity. For us as an NGO, what we're trying to bring into innovation, that bring in those who also, the farmers, the miners, etc. They should also be part of the innovation making. You know, that for instance, we've developed a smartphone application where we've brought together IT engineers and farmers so that they could develop a smartphone app together. So the farmers would draw their field on a sheet of paper, and then the IT engineer would translate this into digital codes. The farmers would test it to make sure it works, and back and forth, until the eventual innovation, that smartphone application, is fully owned by the farmer. And they really know, and they're very professional at using it. So for me, that's one example of innovation which fully takes on board those who most need it in terms of poverty reduction. So there are different ways of innovating. It's not only about taking what works in another country and implementing directly, but it's also to contextualize it in the country so that it actually works at the end of the day.
My dear viewer, we've come to the end of the Monday agenda, and I was, as always, highly privileged to have had Blaise Bernier, who is the country representative for Swissaid in Tanzania, looking onto the issues of the strong pillars that Swissaid in Tanzania is focusing on, the issues around small-scale farmers. As we all know, that agriculture is the backbone of our economy, but the extractive, which they're doing pretty well as well, looking onto the issues of accountability and transparency, which again, Tanzania is doing pretty well. We are pretty much ranking very high in terms of accountability and transparency, but also the issues of gender mainstreaming, and of course, highly privileged for over 40 years that Swissaid has been in Tanzania. They've been doing tremendous work, and especially in promoting ecological organic agriculture. Blaise, I really thank you so much for coming to the program, the Monday Agenda, and talking to me, but talking to the Tanzanians through me. And we really wish you all the very best in all your work. And our response to all the efforts that you put in Tanzania is truly, we're going to embrace, we're going to work together towards seeing the better future for this generation and the coming generation. Until next time, I'm your host, Makani, and thank you for watching the Monday Agenda.